Hi, my name is Kyra McCarthy, and today we're going to be discussing the initiatives and referendums in Arizona. In our first week of class, we discussed the U.S. Constitution and various initiatives that relate to education. This week, we are going to be discussing the Arizona Constitution with insight of the initiatives and referendum processes in Arizona. To begin, we're going to define what initiative and referendum mean. So an initiative can be defined as the method in which citizens who are legally able to vote may propose new laws or amend existing laws. This can be done by gathering signatures from voters and then placing the issue on a ballot. This initiative must be filed with the Arizona Secretary of State 4 months prior to the next general election. And an example of an initiative that took place almost 10 years ago in Arizona was the legalization of medical marijuana. It gave patients the ability to obtain a prescription to purchase marijuana for medical use. Next, we're going to discuss the creation process for both an initiative and a referendum. Essentially, both processes are the same when submitting them, but there are some slight differences after the fact that we'll discuss later. So one of the first steps to create an initiative or referendum is to form a political committee through the Arizona Secretary of State or to be prepared to act as a petition sponsor. Next, you'll file an application and acquire the appropriate petition through the Secretary of State office. Then ensure that anyone that is being paid to circulate that petition is filed with the office as well. The petition will then be circulated and signatures will be obtained from registered voters. Finally, the petition will be submitted to the Arizona Secretary of State office by the deadline, and it will be processed to determine if there are enough signatures to place it on the ballot. Like I previously mentioned, the creation of both an initiative and a referendum are the same. Each holds similarities to each other as well as some differences. For instance, they're both similar in which they allow citizens to have a say in the way their laws are shaped. It gives them a sense of power and doesn't allow the government to abuse their overarching power. Citizens have a voice that they can use against state laws. The main difference between them is who and where the process starts with. For initiatives, these laws are created by the people or within an organization that is then brought to the government, whereas a referendum is brought about when the people have a problem with a law that has already been written and enacted by the government. Another difference is the number of voters each requires for the petition to go through and be placed on the ballot. For an initiative, there must be at least 15% of qualified electors for a petition against a constitutional amendment and 10% of qualified electors for a statutory amendment. For a referendum to become eligible for the ballot, it needs to be the equivalent of at least 5% of the number of votes casted at the last governor election. When we reflect on our government, we're always going to see the advantages and disadvantages of laws, policies, structures, etc. We can observe this when looking at how initiatives and referendums are represented in Arizona's Constitution. One benefit or advantage of both processes is the increase in democratic participation. Citizens can directly change and influence the laws that surround them. It helps them allow their voices to be heard on matters that may not have ever been considered or that aren't being taken as seriously as they would like them to be. This is also a way for checks and balances to be enacted against legislators to ensure laws weren't being passed that would give more power to the government or put citizens in harmful way. On the other hand, this also allows citizens to put problem to potential policies on the government's radar that they might not have thought of beforehand. Some may be thinking, how could there be disadvantages to these processes? They seem like they could only be good, which is true. There aren't many disadvantages to having them, but there are some slight issues or problems that citizens may run into when choosing to do either of them. For instance, because anyone can create initiatives, it may allow wealthy citizens with ulterior motives to promote laws that are in their own interests and use their wealth and power to influence others for their support. Other times, if a law is proposed or there is a call for it to be changed, some voters may not understand what the law is about because they lack the education or resources to make that decision. They may just vote no because they don't realize what the initiative or referendum is about. Like I said, there aren't exactly disadvantages to them, there just could be issues that arise. We have already discussed a little bit about how these processes increase democratic participation by giving them direct influence on laws and policies. Now we're going to discuss their connection to direct democracy. In short, direct democracy allows citizens to vote on laws and policies rather than entirely relying on elected officials like traditional democracy. There are 3 different ways this can be done, and we've already talked about the first 2. Initiative and referendum. The third way is through recall, where voters remove elected officials from office before their term is done. Initiatives and referendums support direct democracy by maintaining citizen empowerment in a way that can be proactive through initiative and reactive through process of referendum. The success and outcome of each process depends on the amount of support it can gather and if it will generate enough votes. Often there will be campaigns to spread the message, or now with the use of social media, people can advocate online too. This can make citizens feel more connected in the lawmaking or decision-making process, knowing that their leaders are listening to their concerns or being held accountable for their choices. Arizona is one of the 24 states that uses direct democracy, leaving some power into the hands of their citizens.